My name's Andrew Weymouth. I work with the University of Idaho Library as the Digital Initiatives Librarian in the Center for Digital Inquiry and Learning, or CDIL department. My work generally consists of creating and maintaining our digital collections, helping to rethink processes, and introducing new digital scholarship tools to the department. So why this workflow? So this was all prompted by my pursuing a master's in history with U of I in the fall of 2024, while also working as a faculty member with the library. And I wanted to develop a note-taking system specifically, but one that would be also helpful in conducting literature reviews, data collection, and environmental scans that I also needed to do for my scholarly work in my position. So beyond the discipline of history, Obsidian is also very popular with a knowledge organization tool with scholars working in computer and data science, mathematics, physics, biology, and medicine. I was initially inspired to pursue Obsidian by a tech talk that I attended last year from interdisciplinary botany PhD student and previous CDIL fellowship recipient Nick Koenig. The presentation centered on using Obsidian for research, and they mentioned that there were community plugins that were developed to connect Zotero to Obsidian. After testing out these tools, I wanted to find out if there was a more reliable and customizable solution for connecting these two platforms that not only extracted annotated material, but one that also categorized annotations according to highlight color. So to begin, minimize this. Zotero is an open source reference management software developed by Roy Rosenzweig Center for History and New Media at George Mason University in 2006. Since jumping from an internal academic tool to incorporation in 2013, the software has gained widespread adoption by writers, students, and researchers as a more versatile and digital preservation-focused alternative to other citation managers like EndNote and Mendeley. Zotero excels in this little animated diagram that I put up as an analogy as a temporary processing area where you can drop all of your research, easily record websites using their browser plugin, annotate in your preferred word processor, and then export in a lightweight file that can be opened again in Zotero whenever you need it. Also, unlike Obsidian, it's very convenient to collaboratively engage with reading material in shared libraries, which is helpful for conducting group literature reviews. Obsidian was founded in 2020 as a markdown file-based knowledge management tool that has a very active user base and regularly updates systems based on that feedback. Obsidian supports the use of multiple computer languages, including JavaScript, HTML, and CSS to style and format your text. But as we'll see later, you can do as much or as little coding as you're interested in. Obsidian workspaces are called vaults, which are essentially just folders of markdown files, and how you choose to structure the folders within the vault allows you to highlight and visualize your research, which we'll explore in greater detail further along in this workshop. Unlike cloud-based note-taking apps, Obsidian is designed to be fully functional on your local device, not even requiring an internet connection, which is key if you're working on research projects with sensitive data. Well, Obsidian has a subscription cloud-based version called Sync and Publish. This workshop will show you how to host your site on free cloud storage platforms such as Google Drive, Microsoft OneDrive, or Dropbox would also work. So you can sync your vaults between devices at no additional cost. Obsidian's key strength is its ability to link notes, tags, and subtags together, creating an interconnected web of knowledge is the term that they use. The built-in graph allows researchers to interact with a visual representation of these connections, which can be helpful in understanding overarching themes and relationships between large amounts of text rather than simply filtering by keyword searches. Additionally, I find that the process of creating tags and thinking about the way that they may or may not apply to different subject matters is a uniquely proactive, creative process that allows researchers to understand the material in new ways. So getting started, kind of the boring portion of this. To begin with, first create an account with Zotero by visiting the user login page and selecting register for a free account, where you will create a username, add an email and password. Again, all the links that I'll be describing are on the site that we'll return to. After validating your email address, visit the downloads page and select the desktop app icon. On Windows, you simply run the setup program that Zotero provides. On a Mac, the only step that you need to do is to drag your DMG file from the downloads folder into your applications folder before opening. If you happen to be on Linux, you can reference the setup instructions provided by Zotero. For syncing the account, once you open the Zotero desktop application for the first time, you'll go to your menu, select Zotero, Settings, Sync, and Link Account, where you'll be prompted to enter your username and password that you've just created. Once this is complete, close the settings pop-up, and you'll click on the green circular arrow button that the little GIF is doing on the top left. It'll go test it out for the first time. As long as a little exclamation mark doesn't pop up, then you're synced with your web library. So you'll have a version of your documents saved locally on your device in your Zotero folder in your documents, as well as an updated version on your web library, which will update when you sync your Zotero desktop app on other devices. And also note with Zotero that if you have multiple desktops and laptops that you would like to use for your account, that's no problem. There's no maximum number of chairs that like Adobe products will have a user with a free account can access. So you'll simply download the desktop application on the new device, enter your username and password, and then that'll sync between multiple devices. And if you're interested in anything else about Zotero, as far as a broad overview, I've also linked my Introduction to Zotero workshop for more functionalities. So with Obsidian, to create an Obsidian account, you'll download the application, which is supported in Windows, Mac, Linux, iOS, and Android. As I mentioned, Obsidian does have a paid sync and publish features, but you don't need either for this workflow. Instead, create a vault simply by creating a folder in a cloud-based storage in Obsidian, and then, open the vault and the pictured homepage that we're seeing here on the bottom right, and select that folder. But one caveat, note that whichever cloud-based storage that you choose may dictate your accessibility on other devices. For example, because I chose my University of Idaho OneDrive folder for the vault, I cannot access this material on my Android app due to OIT privacy standards, but I can access it on all the various laptops and desktops. So this works fine for my research needs, but you may need to host your vault on your own personal cloud storage if you need mobile access to notes. So one thing to consider when you start building out your Obsidian folder, your vault, is the folder structure. So when I first started experimenting with Obsidian, after the Nick's Tech Talk, I was using it essentially like Google Drive with many different Google Sheets in each folder containing just a hodgepodge of things, multiple notes, workshop ideas, to-do lists. So while having keyword searchable grab bag of notes in Google Drive or Microsoft OneDrive is fine, if not ideal, Obsidian is most effective when your vault has a specific scope. Although there's ways to collaborate on a vault using either a shared cloud space or a GitHub repository, Obsidian is really designed as a personal knowledge management tool, and it works best when you're analyzing a somewhat limited pool of documents. This might be a single research paper, a course, or an academic discipline that you want to tag, categorize, and analyze. So now that we have our Zotero and Obsidian accounts and we've considered the vault structure, you'll need to create an account with GitHub, which is a cloud-based platform that allows developers to store, share, and collaborate on code like we're doing today. After you have an account, download the GitHub desktop, and with your Git web browser open, sign in through Preferences Accounts, which will prompt your browser to verify. And you can think of this GitHub desktop as a bridge between GitHub's web browser, and your local GitHub folder, which is saving you from learning a little coding that you would otherwise need to do on the command line. And so next, you'll need to download a text editor. A simple no-cost option that most of us use in the CDIL is Visual Studio Code. Signing in through the settings widget on the bottom left of the interface will prompt the same verification for your GitHub account through the web browser, and that'll connect those two. So now that all these elements are connected, you should be able to clone the annotation extraction tool, which is linked on the site, by pushing the green code button and selecting Open with GitHub Desktop. And that'll retrieve all the materials, which in this case is mainly centered around the Python script. So in GitHub Desktop, now that you've cloned the repository, you'll select Fetch Origin, and then select the Open in Visual Studio Code to begin. And that's on the bottom right there.
The website again, so I can post it in the chat. Weymouth.github.
I'll put it in the chat. It's if you go to my site, it's Python_Obsidian.
Okay, perfect.
Do you got it?
I'll get it.
Okay, cool. All right. So preparation. So prepping materials, to use this annotation workflow, you will need a digital version of your text material in PDF file format with a layer of OCR, or optical character recognition. So the optical character recognition process involves scanning pages, segmenting different areas of text, kind of like recognizing all the different columns in a newspaper, extracting the features, and finally recognizing individual characters. This interpretation of the text is then overlaid onto the image or document, where it can now be keyword searchable and used with text-to-speech assistive technology. If you're using downloadable ebooks, or you request a digitization of physical books through our interlibrary loan, these items will come with a layer of OCR already. If you need to generate a layer of OCR yourself, you can do this with Adobe Acrobat, which you have a subscription to through the university. And for alternate approaches that I kind of prefer, you can see the notes section on the site. Well, the OCR function of Adobe is adequate. You may encounter errors of OCR interpreting two-page spread as a single column. With this in mind, I built a book splitter Python tool. Let's see. Excuse me. Yeah, I built this book splitter tool, which we've got a little GIF of the run through, which will convert all of your pages into left and right sides and reorder the pages in the output. And this one, just like the annotation tool that we'll work at, is a very simple, you drop your original file in the A folder and you generate the derivatives in the B folder. And instructions for how to set up this tool are included in the appendix, but they're very similar to the setup for the annotation extraction tool we'll walk through in a moment. So now that you have your OCR layer, you're going to read and highlight your material. This can be done either in Adobe Acrobat or a freely available option that I like called Ocular, where you can easily build out an unlimited number of custom highlight sets. To change your default word processor in Zotero to your preferred platform, select Zotero, General, Open PDFs using, and then select that software. One thing to keep in mind, though, if you are using Ocular and you're thinking you want to use, 20 different colors to do 20 different categories, the colors do have to be distinct enough so that it won't encounter errors. And I found that 6 is about kind of a sweet spot that I was able to reach with that in mind. So on to the annotation extraction tool itself. The Python tool detects a series of 6 highlight colors, which all have designations, and then extracts the text with those highlights into 2 different markdown files, where these excerpts are displayed either categorically or chronologically. From the beginning to the end of the document, you annotated. So here is a snippet of the code for the colors and the corresponding categories as they're currently set up in the tool, but both of these values are customizable depending on your area of study. The numbers after each of the color names is the percent of red, green, and blue in the RGB color value. And these are just the categories that worked for me. And it's crucial when thinking about this that these are just kind of the beginning tags, and then we'll be creating customized subtags, and that's a little bit later on. So let's see. So this tool works by importing the FITZ module, that's FITZ, of PYMU PDF, which is a library used for working with PDF files, including extracting text and handling annotations. The header material also includes importing Python's OS module, which allows you to interact with the operating system, reading directories and file paths, and the RE module, which provides regular expression operations, as well as searching and modifying the text that we'll be extracting. So kind of the order of steps for the Python code. First, we're cleaning the OCR text. That involves removing hyphenated line breaks, removing line breaks within the text and replacing them with a space, and kind of varying degrees of success on that section that I go into in the future refinements in the appendix. And also, we're removing corrupted characters and extra white space as it occurs in the text. Then we're extracting the highlighted text, and we're mapping colors to their respective categories and using a tolerance to determine if the detected color is close enough to the reference color. Then we're generating these extracted passages into two different files in the B folder within the Python tool, one arranged categorically, such as important, definitions, quotes, and then one arranged chronologically, page 1, page 2, page 3. All right. And to run the Python code, these instructions are going to assume that you've never run a Python environment before and that you're already working inside a cloned repository of the annotation extraction tool. So all the commands are designed to be executed from a bash-compatible command line interface, such as git bash for Windows or terminal for Mac OS, within Visual Studio Code or any terminal emulator. And note that after step 2, the same instructions apply to both Windows and Mac users. So to begin, you're going to install bash if you haven't already. In Windows, this involves just downloading Git from the Windows website and installing it. On a Mac, you're going to do this from the command line using brew install git. Then you're going to install Python, kind of the same deal. Windows, you're going to go and download this from the official Python site. On a Mac, you're going to do brew install Python from the command line. And then the third step is installing the required packages for this one. And so that's ReOS and that PYMU PDF library that I mentioned earlier. Then you're basically set up. So now you're going to organize your folders by dropping in the PDF file that you want to extract those highlights from into the A folder in your repository. And then you're going to run the Python script. And that's Python script.py, which is the name of the Python file. And then after following these steps, your Python tool should run successfully, and you'll find the extracted highlights in the annotation B folder in two separate markdown files organized categorically and chronologically. And so we have a demo GIF of kind of what that process looks like. We're dropping the file into the A folder, and we're seeing it in our Visual Studio Code there. We're running our Python code, and you can see it's processing all the pages below. And then we're seeing our two markdown files that have been generated in the B folder and dropping those into your Obsidian right there. So now that we have our two markdown files of the extracted annotations and their highlighted categories, open your Obsidian vaults, create a folder for the book that you just processed, and drop those files inside, as we're seeing. While there's more complicated ways for searching for things in Obsidian, the only elements that we really need to do for this method are searching for path and for tags. Paths are simply refining results by how you've organized your folder, whereas tags are custom categories that you create by adding a hashtag before each entry of your markdown file. So each entry would be each element that's extracted. So for example, if you've arranged your folder like the image that's on the left over there, by entering a path into the search bar on the left side of the screen, you can choose to see either only, in this circumstance, History 502 or History 514, and all of their associated text or individual text in the graph or document view. Additionally, if you type tag, you'll be able to see the 6 tags that we've generated from the highlighted text so far by having this has been automated by having the Python tool insert a hashtag in front of each of these categories. So let's build off these initial categories in the review and custom tagging process. So while you can do this detailed tagging in either file, I found that this process makes no sense in the chronological export, but I still like to have the categorized markdown file in case I want to just look at only the important or the stats or the definition sections, if that ever comes up. So, but whichever file that you choose to do your detailed tagging on, think of that as your primary notes document moving forward. At this point in your research, you've read this text once already and highlighted sections based on category. And so while you're reviewing these notes again, take a moment. Excuse me, I think I might be behind a slide. Sorry. Oh yeah, I skipped it. Apologies. We're seeing it on the bottom right over there as far as the tagging process. So while you're reviewing these notes again, take a moment to reassess the initial tags. Perhaps the important passage is actually a general note or the reverse. And most importantly, create new tags. Possibly an important passage that you've initially highlighted in animal sciences also has to do with livestock genetics, animal nutrition, or behavior ethology. Maybe your initial tag of a quote in a book covering botany is also indicative of larger themes that you'd like to track about plant morphology, photosynthesis process, or ecological interactions that you would like to see together at a glance. So as you're seeing there, all you need to do is put a hashtag. Note that the tags need to be connected by dashes or underscores if you want to use multiple words, and that you can also create subtags to analyze different elements under the same parent item by using a / after the tag, such as hashtag author / thesis or hashtag author / methodology. Tagging, it's important to keep in mind, is an iterative and subjective process. You may find that throughout the course of your research, the name of the tag may shift as you think about that subject differently. 4 or 5 tags may merge into one as you begin to identify major themes that emerge across the collection. Before reviewing the material, I find it helpful to expand the tag panel on the right side of Obsidian and quickly review the tags to remind myself of an ever-expanding list to keep redundancies to a minimum. Though this second review of the material may feel like an extra step, I've found that it not only helps me make more sense of the material, but the tagging process taps into an active, creative engagement with the text as I look for ways that it complements or criticizes work in other areas of the vault. One of Obsidian's strengths is that it isn't just a keyword search across a pool of notes. Instead, you're adding meaning-making tags that are particular to what you are finding in the text to form the interpretive web of knowledge across the collection, which is a good jumping off point to the final section, which is the visualization of this research. So like many data visualizations, the graph view of Obsidian is simply made of nodes, which are the circles in this case that represent an item, and the edge, which are the lines between the nodes. In this example, the nodes in blue and fuchsia are books, and the green nodes around them represent tags. So opening the graph settings and working from the top down, what I've done here is that I've toggled off viewing file attachments, existing files, and orphans, which are notes that are not linked to anything else in the vault. This will leave us with just our primary notes document and any other meeting notes that we've added tags to. In the groups section, I've added path history 502 to differentiate the color of the books between the two courses. In display, I've lowered the edge thickness and I've also turned off of arrows, which is an option if that's helpful. And then finally in forces, the default Obsidian display is just going to give you a nice, neat little sphere, but it doesn't really tell you anything about the research. However, the kind of settings to the left of the graph visualization that we can see over there will basically the tag nodes in the center. It's using a centering and a repelling force, and it's showing you the tag nodes that are in the center are used the most throughout all the text. As the tag nodes move outwards, they're in proximity to the text that they're most associated with. And then tag nodes on the outside of the cluster are only associated with one text node. Additionally, the size of both the text and the tag nodes denote the number of texts or tags that they're associated with. So the number, the quantity. So in conclusion, using this method, we can see at a glance the thematic, methodological, and technical similarities between the books across courses. And I hope this approach provides you with a starting point that, again, is completely customizable to suit your research needs. And if you have any questions about this approach, always feel free to reach out to me at weymouth@uidaho.edu, and we'll return again to the slide and all of the full transcript, visual resources, and all the links are on the URL at the bottom here. And I can also kind of give a walkthrough of what the Python tool looks like on the back, and also what that Obsidian graph looks like now that I've been kind of developing it over a little while. But yeah, any questions or comments?
I have one if you don't mind.
Yeah.
Do you find there is a sort of upper limit on how many tags are useful, or it becomes like too much of a mess and too hard to sort through?
Yeah, I mean, that's a conversation. Let's open that graph here really quick and share. So this is, where's my mouse? This is what that looks like currently. And again, we've got our books and we've got our nodes. Because we're using like the default 6 categories, these are always going to be the largest. Selecting them opens up all of the instances of it, and then starting with the file that it's in this case, they're all the books. And I think it is, what I kind of like about it is that it's all subjective. All the tags are seen on the right over here. It's not a totally quantitative thing. It's kind of, and that's kind of the meaning making element that I was talking about, where it's maybe it's just one strange thing having to do with one book, or one interesting thing having to do with one book. But I find, but then I do find myself like being kind of particular, because you never know what, text in the future is going to speak to it. So, but it is recursive. It is a little bit messy, but I think that that kind of meaning making element of it really lets you really engage with the text in a really active way, which I really appreciate. So that it's not just feeling like sometimes researching is just hearing people talk to you. And this is really a way to engage with it actively.
And I imagine if you need to modify a tag, you can just like Control F it and then replace it with whatever tag you're collapsing it into or something.
Yeah. I mean, like you would just find, like with this little one-off one, you would just find that it's just in one, or you can find it across a few different ones. So you can easily just jump in and then change it over to whatever tag that you'd like. But yeah, I mean, what we're seeing over here is now thesis-oriented material, and then 2 courses each over spring and fall, and how those, the nodes of these they're colored by the courses, and how they relate to each other by tags, which is at this point kind of like thematically revealing, which is kind of, it's nice to have as a visual person. It's nice to be able to have that at a glance, Any other questions, comments?